One of the prophecies about the Messiah, we call it a minor prophecy. It's actually the last prophecy of all the prophets in the Bible. The prophet Malachi said that before the coming of the Messiah, there's going to be the return of a great prophet. Who is that great prophet? Elijah the prophet will return. We know in the Bible that Elijah the prophet never died. Elijah the prophet went up to heaven alive. And the prophet Malachi tells us that before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord, Elijah the prophet is going to return. The Christian Bible was aware of this. The Christian Bible understood that in order for Jesus to be the Messiah, there had to be an appearance of Elijah the prophet. Where was he? So the Gospel of Matthew in chapter 11 and chapter 17 say Elijah the prophet did return. Who was it? It was John the Baptizer, what they call mistakenly John the Baptist. Like he was a Baptist or an Episcopalian or a Lutheran. He was John the Baptizer. And they say that was Elijah the prophet. Okay, they're making a claim that, okay, Elijah the prophet came back as John the Baptist. Now, do I have to believe that simply because the New Testament says so? Meaning that when a claim is made, we don't just accept it uncritically. We want to think about, is there any plausibility to this claim? Why should a Jew believe that this John the Baptizer was Elijah the prophet? Interestingly, in the Christian Bible, in the book of John, many people suspected that this John the Baptizer, he was the Messiah. He was very popular. He's an actual historical figure. Jesus we have no record of. John the Baptizer we have historical records of. And many people thought that he might have been the Messiah. So in the book of John, Jews come to him, to this John the Baptizer, and they say, "Are you the Messiah?" He says, "No, I'm not." So they say, "Okay, are you Elijah the prophet?" He says, "No." Wait a second. Matthew insists that John the Baptizer is Elijah the prophet. Okay. But when they ask John the Baptizer to his face, he says, "No, I'm not. I'm not feeling very confident now that Elijah the prophet returned 2,000 years ago." So the Christians again use the fudge factor, and they say, well, this John the Baptizer is not actually Elijah the prophet. He is Elijah the prophet who came back in the spirit, meaning John the Baptizer came in the spirit of Elijah the prophet. That's a little bit fuzzier. The problem is that in the book of Malachi, the prophet didn't say that someone is going to come back in the spirit of Elijah the prophet. The prophet actually uses a definite article. Hine anochi sholeach lachem et Eliyah hanavi. And the word et in Hebrew always precedes a direct object. Who is coming back? It's going to be Elijah the prophet, not some dude in his spirit. So the Bible tells us who is coming back? It's Elijah himself. Secondly, when they asked this John the Baptizer, "Are you Elijah?" he said, "No, I'm not." And he didn't claim any association with Elijah the prophet. He didn't say, "Well, I'm not actually Elijah the prophet, but I'm someone that came back in his spirit." And finally, what did the prophet Malachi say about this Elijah the prophet? He said that Elijah the prophet's going to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. No evidence that John the Baptizer accomplished that. So as far as we're concerned, there is zero evidence that John the Baptizer was Elijah the prophet, which is just another nail in the coffin of Jesus being the Messiah. Number one, he didn't fulfill any of the messianic prophecies. Number two, he didn't fulfill this prerequisite.